Fossil fuels have been the backbone of the automotive industry for well over a century now. Coal, kerosene, diesel, petrol. Wait, what am I doing here? And with this again, I have to do a real world review. Okay, alright, let's go. The Tata Nexon has been on sale in India for just over a year now. And in that time, Tata's actually managed to sell over 2,200 units, making it a silent success. It's also opened the door for other budget manufacturers to look at EVs for the future in India. Well, we're back here with this one again, and this time around it's for a real world review. What it's like to commute with, what it's like on the highway, performance figures, practicality, comfort, and then some more. Now, if you want like a shortened, condensed version of the review, you can always watch our first drive review, link to which is in the description below. The Tata Nexon in this EV, guys, represents the first step towards bringing electric vehicles into the budget segment. Put simply, if everything looks and feels the same and comes at an affordable cost, then making the transition shouldn't be particularly hard. On a more factual note, it's also the first electric vehicle in the highly competitive compact SUV segment. And while this may not be Tata's first electric vehicle, it's actually their most comprehensive effort, the likes of which includes a new scalable architecture called Ziptron that underpins this car. Before we dive into the nitty-gritties of the Nexon EV, here are the facts and figures about the car. Launched in January of 2020, the Nexon EV can be had in 3 variants with 1 powertrain option and across 3 different shades, including this one which is called Teal and is specific to the Nexon EV. On the outside, the Nexon EV looks quite identical to its standard engine sibling, which is important for a few reasons. The top of this list is of course brand identity and cost, which are both self-explanatory. A rather more crucial one is that involves normalizing EVs for the average buyer. Gone are the days of oddly shaped cars that passed off as electric vehicles, and today having an EV that falls in line with everything else will make it a more noticed if not a fully popular choice. Up front you get this large black plastic piece that sits below the bonnet and also houses the large Tata logo. These tri-arrow inserts as well as these blue lines are all painted in a special color to match the electric nature of the car. Now, we would have liked if Tata had used LED headlamps in place of the projector units, but these do work well to add to the appearance of the car. In profile, you can see the Nexon EV's mini coupe SUV looks. Highlights here include this heavily flared wheel arch, this forward sloping glass area, and this dual tone roof which comes courtesy of this car being a top of the line XZ Plus Lux variant. Nexon EV rides on these really nice looking diamond cut alloy wheels that are 16 inches in size and two 160 by section tires. These are similar to the design offered on the regular Nexon. The rear of the Tata Nexon has quite a few elements to catch your attention. There are a lot of chunky elements here like this bulge on the hood as well as these wide hips that give the car a hunkered down stance. I'm not a fan of this large blue applique between the tail lamps, however it's most definitely something that will catch your attention if you look at the car from the rear. Now, as I said before, the Nexon EV's looks are a bit understated for what it is, but it looks like that's a part of the plan. There's enough to make the car stand out, but not so much that you become the center of attention on a road full of cars. Like the exterior, the cabin of the Nexon EV is shared with its fossil fuel powered siblings, but with a host of updates in keeping with line with its electric powered nature. Let's get one thing out before we get fully into the cabin of the Nexon EV, which is that it's the same dimension wise as the standard car, and so you get the same amount of space inside. This top of the line Tata Nexon EV in this XZ Plus Lux trim that we are driving gets a beige and black cabin with these blue inserts in various places. The 2 lower spec trims get an all black cabin which doesn't look or feel as premium as this, but that all black nature does lend a hint of sportiness to the cabin. The quality of plastics used is par for the course and everything around is more or less easy to access, with most buttons and switches falling easily to hand. What we found odd is the placement of the USB and aux ports, which has been carried over without change from the car's launch in 2017 and is still a challenge to use even today. Another issue that we have are these gloss black plastics that are spread out across the cabin, While they make the interiors look really attractive, they are dust and fingerprint magnets and will need constant attention, especially if you live in a relatively dusty area. Now, an issue commonly associated with rear seats of EVs is that the seats are placed too high due to batteries and other components being placed under them. But that's not the case with the Nexon EV. The floor is completely flat and there's more than enough space for two people to travel in good comfort. Features here include rear AC vents, a center armrest with two cup holders, a 12-volt socket on the passenger side, split folding rear seats, and while you don't get seat back pockets, the back of the front seat has been scooped out for additional legroom. As is the case with the standard Nexon, you get a 350-litre boot that's capable of swallowing up quite a number of bags and can be expanded when you fold down the rear seats, which split in a 60-40 design. A word of warning though, beige or white interiors are notorious for picking up stains, and if you plan to utilize the Nexon EV's full storage, it's wise to cover the seats before you load up the car. This top-spec XZ Plus Lux variant that we are driving gets all the usual niceties like climate control, height adjustment for the driver's seat, cool glove box, and an infotainment system with a 7-inch floating touchscreen display. This is a comprehensive system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and over 35 connected car features like geofencing, remote AC control, and an SOS alert. However, because this is an EV, you get some dedicated EV features like remote monitoring of current charge levels, charging history, available range, and of course nearest charging stations. The Tata Nexon EV's electric motor produces 127 bhp and 245 Nm of torque and is powered by a 30.2 kWh lithium-ion liquid-cooled battery pack. There's a single-speed gearbox powering the front wheels. The battery pack is certified for IP67 level of protection, and the car can wade into a foot of water with no worries, which, when combined with the 205 mm ground clearance, makes it quite a good offering of this kind for our roads. At 1440 kgs, it is significantly heavier than the internal combustion engine powered Nexon. That's due to the battery pack, which sits low down and has been positioned to give the car a 50-50 weight distribution. The Nexon EV is offered with two drive modes, with D being the most city-oriented one with a reduced torque figure, while slotting the car into S mode will give access to all 245 Nm of torque and is useful on an open road where you have to go faster. Now we come to a rather crucial part in our real-world review of the Nexon EV. What's it like to drive? To give you a proper assessment of the car, we took it out at a mixed condition of highways and cities, as well as strapped on our testing equipment just to give you an idea of the kind of numbers that this car is achieving. Now, in terms of highway driving experience, with its relatively small battery pack and the yet-to-bloom charging infrastructure in our country, you're never going to be doing big miles with the Nexon EV. And even if you do decide to take that step, you'd have to plan it in such a way that you'd be going from charging point to charging point. Nonetheless, if you were to venture out onto the highway, the Nexon EV makes easy work of picking up and dropping speed due to the instant availability of torque. With two people in the car and with a full charge, we were able to extract 233 km from the drivetrain, while adding 3 more adults to the mix dropped the highway range to 225, an impressive figure for the amount of added weight. This should bode well for a fully loaded car, both people and luggage, in view of a quick weekend getaway. In city conditions, the instant torque is a boon as you need very little effort to move forward. In fact, it would take you a few tries to get used to the car's silent nature and tendency to jump forward if you dab the throttle too hard. However, once you get hang of it, the Nexon EV feels like any other automatic in traffic, responding the same way. You sit high up among the traffic, but in a compact footprint, and this combined with the instant torque makes maneuverability a breeze. You need 2.5 turns to go from lock to lock, and there's even a little guide in the MID telling you the position of the front wheels. In terms of the city commute experience, with a fully charged battery and 2 people in the car, we got a range of 197 kilometers, and with 5 people in the car, this range dropped down to 179 km. If you're one of those people that lives in a hilly area, the car also gets hill start and hill hold, which you should be a little wary of because it takes some time to kick in and the car has a tendency to roll back before it gets going. Our testing revealed some impressive figures for the Nexon EV when it comes to some straight line thrills. In the full-fat S mode, it did the 0 to 100 kmph sprint in 9.14 seconds, while in the more subdued D mode, it dropped to 17.38 seconds. In city conditions, since drivability is the key, the all-important 20 to 80 kmph roll-on time in S mode was achieved in 5.11 seconds, while in D mode, it dropped to 8.33 seconds. In terms of the handling, the steering weighs up nicely as you go faster, and gliding from point to point will reward you with a good driving experience. As we had said before, putting the car into S mode gives you full access to all 245 Nm of torque. This livens up the accelerator quite a bit with noticeable torque steer as you get off the line. Now Tata says it could have dialed back the delivery but left it this way to give it an extra kick in the driving experience. The Nexon EV's ride is on the firmer side due to the 16-inch wheels and to compensate for the extra weight. However, this has not affected the quality of the ride, and like its fossil fuel powered siblings, it gobbles up most of the stuff in the way without losing a step. Ground clearance at 205 mm allows you to clear everything that our roads throws up in terms of obstacles and imperfections. The 3.3 kWh AC charger, when plugged into a 15 ampere plug point, will take 8 hours to be fully charged. However, if you plug the car into a fast charger, you can go from 0 to 80% in just 60 minutes. Tata also provides you with an emergency charger which can take up to 24 hours for a full charge. The car also has regenerator braking, which gives you engine braking when you get off the throttle and also helps recharge the battery. In fact, the latter soon becomes a challenge just to see how much you can give back to the battery. Though, a word of warning, always be aware of your surroundings when attempting to work the regen system in this manner. Now, we've spent some time with the car, tested everything there is, and there's quite a lot to talk about. Space, features, practicality-wise, it's carried over everything from the standard Nexon, making it quite a competent product. The novel nature of the electric drivetrain makes this a fun and fast car to drive, and while the additional weight has changed the way the car handles, it's not something that vastly affects the driving experience. Now here's the thing that we have an issue with. Tata claims a range of between 300 and 320 kilometers on a full charge. In our real-world test, we got significantly lower, which would have not been an issue had there been a fully established charging infrastructure network across the country. This then is a product for someone who wants to be in with the times, has the access and bandwidth to set up a charging point at their home or office, or someone who wants a novel secondary vehicle in their lineup. The Tata Nexon EV range is priced from Rs 14.80 lakh to Rs 17.12 lakh on-road Delhi. What's more, depending on the state, you can also get government subsidies because this is an electric car. Finally, Tata offers the Nexon EV on subscription with prices in the range of Rs 29,000 to Rs 34,000 depending on the city. Currently, the subscription program is only available in 6 cities across the country, but should expand to more as the year progresses. For all the details on the Tata Nexon EV, do visit our website carwale.com. Thank you so much for watching.